Chapter 6. No Turning Back.
The Worldbreaker's massive hand swept across the devastation with casual authority. Divine power flowed through scarred fingers like liquid starlight. Where our transport had been crushed beneath falling debris, a marvelous palanquin materialized. Its golden framework supported silk that shimmered with patterns too complex for mortal eyes to follow comfortably. The very air bent around its presence, reality adjusting to accommodate divine will made manifest.
Bring her,
Kaelan commanded, his voice carrying harmonics that made the settlement's remaining structures vibrate. The Lycanthropes emerged from shadow with movements that spoke of predators returning from a successful hunt. 8 feet of lanky muscle and controlled violence, they approached with fluid grace. Their amber eyes never left me, challenging, measuring, finding me distinctly wanting. The female who led them moved with authority that transcended mere physical dominance. Scars mapped centuries of violence across her powerful frame, each mark testimony to survival through encounters that would have destroyed lesser predators. When she gestured toward the palanquin, claws designed for rending flesh caught light that had no earthly source.
"You will ride in comfort,"
she said, her voice carrying undertones of avalanche barely contained.
"until we reach the sanctuary. Then you will learn your place among better beings."
Her disdain pressed against my consciousness like a physical weight. This wasn't mere contempt for human weakness. This was judgment rendered by intelligence that had watched civilizations rise and fall while remaining loyal to power that transcended mortal understanding. I was prey that had been granted temporary reprieve, livestock being transported to wherever divine will required my presence. 4 lycanthropes lifted the palanquin with casual strength that made my weight meaningless. Their coordination spoke of centuries spent moving together, pack bonds forged through shared violence across multiple worlds. As we rose from the settlement's ruins, I caught one final glimpse of families gathering around miraculously healed children who would grow up carrying stories of the woman who'd stolen fire from gods. Tommy Crane waved with gap-toothed enthusiasm, his recovery so complete it seemed like fever dream rather than recent miracle. Marcus Webb chased butterflies through rubble that had once been our community center, his laughter bright against the destruction surrounding us. They lived. Whatever happened next, that truth remained inviolate. The mountain passes stretched before us like passages carved from nightmare and divine ambition. Stone formations defied geological principles, thrusting skyward in configurations that looked architectural rather than naturally eroded. The very air tasted different here, thinner, charged with potential that made my teeth ache with each breath. Through the palanquin's silk curtains, I watched terrain that belonged more to alien worlds than any earthly geography. Trees grew in perfect spirals that hurt to observe directly, their bark pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Flowers chimed like distant bells when mountain winds brushed their petals, creating harmonies that seemed to carry meaning just beyond comprehension.
"First time seeing the deep territories?"
The female lycanthrope's voice carried mockery barely disguised as conversation.
"Your kind usually dies before reaching the interesting parts."
I met her amber gaze through silk that filtered light into prismatic patterns. "My name is Vera. What should I call you?"
Her laugh held no warmth, only the promise of violence carefully leashed by pack discipline.
"You may call me what your betters have always called me, alpha female. Names are for equals, and equality requires earning."
The casual dismissal stung more than intended insults. 20 years of leadership within the settlement had taught me to recognize authority structures, but this transcended mere hierarchy. I was being classified as something fundamentally lesser. Not just human, but a human who dared violate divine territory through presumption that bordered on cosmic treason.
Hours passed unmeasured by time that flowed differently in spaces where dimensional barriers grew thin. The sun tracked across the sky in alien patterns, casting shadows that pointed in directions that violated every principle of physics and navigation. But the pack moved with unwavering certainty, their enhanced senses reading landmarks invisible to mortal perception.
We climbed steadily through passes that shouldn't exist according to any map of the region. The mountain peaks grew stranger with altitude. Crystalline formations sang in harmonies too complex for human ears. Stone formations moved when observed peripherally. Vegetation watched our passage with awareness that felt uncomfortably human.
You're wondering where we're taking you.
The alpha female observed, her voice carrying amusement at mortal confusion.
Your tiny mind catalogs impossibilities and finds them wanting.
I'm wondering why the Worldbreaker would spare a thief, I replied, refusing to let her condescension pass unchallenged.
Her amber eyes narrowed with something that might have been approval beneath the perpetual disdain.
Better. Direct questions receive honest answers when asked with proper spine.
She gestured toward peaks that pierced clouds, which obeyed different meteorological laws.
The Worldbreaker maintains research that spans centuries. Your theft cost more than you can imagine. You will serve as penance.
The explanation chilled my blood despite the altitude's natural cold, not temporary imprisonment but extended servitude. The golden apples had saved dying children, but the price extended far beyond a simple punishment. The World Tree Gateway materialized before us like a wound torn through reality itself. Its translucent surface revealed glimpses of infinite realms stretching through space. Desert moons decorated with crystalline formations. Jungle planets where trees sang in harmonious chorus. Ice worlds where aurora danced beneath triple stars. My breath caught in recognition of legends made manifest. The World Tree connected all realms where the gods maintained dominion, its branches stretching through dimensions. Through its portals, divine beings traveled between worlds with casual ease that reduced interstellar distances to afternoon strolls.
Impressed?
The alpha female asked, watching my expression with calculating intelligence.
Your kind thinks gods are simply powerful humans. You cannot comprehend beings whose authority spans multiple realities.
The portal's surface rippled like disturbed water as we approached. Beyond its translucent barrier, I caught glimpses of spaces that operated according to physics unknown to human science. Gravity flowed in spirals rather than straight lines. Light carried weight and substance. Air tasted of colors impossible to name. All too soon we passed by the portal. I tried to look back, longing to see other worlds, to travel to them, but the Lycanthropes carried me past without care. The sanctuary sprawled across 7 terraces carved into mountainside that rose toward peaks which pierced skies the color of molten amber. Each level revealed botanical impossibilities that challenged everything I thought I understood about cultivation and genetic limitation. Gardens where plants from a dozen different worlds grew in harmonious chaos, their roots intertwining in patterns that spoke of careful planning across geological timescales.
Laboratories held specimens in crystalline containers that pulsed with their own heartbeats. Crimson flowers whose petals moved with predatory intelligence. Ferns that chimed in otherworldly harmonies when touched by wind that carried scents of distant stars. Vines watched our approach with all too human awareness.
The very air hummed with contained power that made my teeth ache and skin prickle with static electricity. This wasn't merely a garden or research facility. This was a collection of alien ecosystems maintained in delicate balance through divine will and scientific knowledge that transcended human understanding.
Welcome to the Worldbreaker's domain,
the alpha female said, her voice carrying satisfaction at mortal awe rendered speechless.
Here you will learn what gods accomplish when lesser beings cease their interference. Here you will learn what it means to serve a god.
The palanquin descended toward terraced levels where architecture flowed like frozen water into balconies and walkways that defied structural engineering. Living stone had been shaped through forces I couldn't comprehend, creating passages that existed in perfect harmony with alien vegetation that should have required entirely different atmospheric conditions. Through translucent walls, I glimpsed other specimens that belonged in museum collections rather than active cultivation. plants that had been extinct since before human civilization learned to record its own history. Species that existed only in botanical texts as theoretical reconstructions from fossil evidence.
But these lived, thrived, grew in conditions that demonstrated mastery over life itself. Divine authority exercised through knowledge that reduced natural law to mere guidance rather than absolute limitation.
We settled onto a platform where lycanthropes waited in military formation. Their amber eyes tracked our arrival with intelligence that missed nothing, cataloged everything, found my presence amusing in ways that promised future entertainment at my expense.
The alpha female gestured toward passages carved into living stone.
Your quarters await. Comfortable enough for livestock being maintained in useful condition.
Her scarred features twisted into expression that might have been smile if it contained any warmth.
Do not mistake hospitality for kindness. You breathe because divine will requires your breathing. That tolerance ends the moment you prove inadequate.
As lycanthropes escorted me toward whatever accommodations had been prepared, I caught glimpses of watchers in shadows between dimensions. Patient observers whose manifold eyes reflected judgment, recording every detail of interaction between gods and mortals who dared disturb cosmic order through desperate love.
The corridors stretched deeper into the mountain heart with passages that existed in spaces larger than their physical dimensions allowed. Through crystalline windows, alien constellations wheeled in patterns that belonged to skies unknown to earthly astronomy.
This was where I would serve, though I did not know what form that service would take. I was a prisoner in paradise.
The alpha female's laughter echoed off the passages, promising education in hierarchies that placed mortal presumption far below pack loyalty and divine authority.
There was no turning back.
Chapter 7. Stepping into a new reality.
They gave me a chamber carved from living stone. Blue veins pulsed through the walls like captured starlight. The ceiling arched high overhead, disappearing into shadows that moved when I wasn't looking directly at them. No windows, just smooth curves that looked grown rather than built. The air felt heavy here. Each breath took effort. Strange scents drifted through hidden vents. Desert spices mixed with Arctic pine, tropical flowers blended with something mineral that tasted of distant worlds.
Your accommodations,
the alpha female announced. Her scarred frame filled the doorway like barely contained violence.
Comfortable enough for useful livestock.
Those amber eyes tracked my every movement.
Don't mistake this for kindness. You breathe because divine will requires it.
The furnishings belonged in a palace. Silk hangings shimmered with impossible patterns. The bed stretched larger than my family's entire home, covered in fabric that felt like captured moonlight. Golden fixtures adorned every surface, their craftsmanship beyond human skill. But luxury couldn't hide the truth. The single door locked from outside with mechanisms I couldn't understand. Crystalline interfaces responded only to divine touch, their surfaces reflecting impossible depths. I was a prisoner in paradise, and every golden thread reminded me of that.
The alpha female left with fluid grace. The sound of her claws on stone echoed down corridors larger than they should be, growing fainter until silence pressed against me like physical weight.
I explored my gilded cage with botanist's hands, cataloging details my mother had taught me to observe. The stone walls bore no tool marks. They'd been shaped by forces that treated matter as mere suggestion. Under close examination, the crystalline structures pulsed with their own rhythm. The ventilation carried whispers in languages that hurt to hear. Not conversation, something older, more fundamental. The air itself seemed alive with structured sound that bypassed understanding and spoke directly to my nerves. Through the walls, distant sounds filtered like audio ghosts, mechanical noises from unknown technology, voices speaking in frequencies beyond human range, and underneath it all, a thrumming that pulsed in rhythm with something vast and patient, waiting in the mountain's heart. Hours passed unmeasured. No servants appeared with meals or explanations. No guards checked on me. I was cargo delivered to its destination, useful livestock stored until needed. But livestock with botanical training my captors apparently required intact. Sleep wouldn't come despite bone-deep exhaustion. The bed adjusted to my body temperature through silent mechanisms, creating perfect comfort that felt artificial. When I finally drifted off, dreams filled with golden fruit pulsing with life force, children's laughter mixing with predatory howls from impossible gardens. I woke to find young women entering my chamber, 3 of them, all achingly beautiful in ways that suggested careful selection rather than natural genetics. They moved without speaking, their coordination hinting at communication beyond audible language. One prepared a bathing tub that materialized from floor mechanisms I hadn't noticed. Another laid out clothing that caught light like starfire, woven from materials that had never grown on Earth. The third watched my reactions with eyes that held intelligence tempered by something like sympathy.
"You must bathe,"
she said, her words carrying unfamiliar accents.
"The master requires cleanliness in all who serve his purposes."
The implication hit like a physical blow. These weren't prisoners. They were willing servants who'd accepted roles in whatever cosmic drama played out here. Their beauty served purposes beyond aesthetics. "I can bathe myself," I said with more defiance than wisdom.
She nodded with understanding beyond her apparent years.
"This we know, but service requires witnessing. The master's commands extend to observation as well as execution."
2 entered the bathing area with me, while the third remained by the clothing. Privacy was a privilege I no longer possessed. Professional hands scrubbed away 20 years of settlement life with efficiency that treated me like any valuable object requiring maintenance.
The water felt different. Not just warm, but infused with minerals that tingled with barely contained energy. My skin emerged pink and cleaner than soap could achieve, every pore open to mountain air that carried impossible garden scents. They dried me with cloths that absorbed moisture without friction, their texture defying physics. The sensation was intimate beyond mere touch, servants handling my body with professional detachment. The clothing felt wrong against my skin. Silk that moved with its own ethereal wind, reflecting depths that suggested infinite space within finite matter. The garment had only a thin tie at the waist, its translucent material leaving little to imagination while maintaining technical modesty. "Why this outfit?" I asked, though part of me already knew.
"The master prefers his subjects displayed appropriately,"
she replied, sympathy not quite reaching diplomatically neutral eyes.
"Beauty serves purposes beyond aesthetics in divine households."
The words confirmed my fears. I wasn't just a botanical expert held for knowledge extraction. I was potential breeding stock, genetic material being evaluated for cosmic purposes that treated mortal autonomy as inconvenient complication.
Despite the altitude, the temperature remained perfectly comfortable. The sanctuary's climate control warmed the air itself through unknown mechanisms, creating an environment that served divine preferences regardless of external conditions.
When the servants finished, I stood before crystalline mirrors that reflected more than physical appearance. The surface showed depth suggesting multidimensional viewing, revealing aspects of health and genetic potential no earthly examination could detect. The woman staring back bore resemblance to Vera Ashworth, but transcended her limitations. Skin that caught light like polished marble, hair moving with supernatural wind, features refined through divine attention beyond human imagination. Still recognizably me, but enhanced in ways that spoke of cosmic intervention.
"Beautiful."
The spokeswoman observed with satisfaction at work completed to divine specifications.
"The master will be pleased with the transformation."
They departed with silent coordination, leaving me alone in luxury that felt increasingly like a gilded cage for livestock being prepared for cosmic auction. The clothing clung to divinely enhanced curves, serving purposes beyond modesty. I was no longer entirely human. Whatever their ministrations had accomplished, they'd begun transformation that would continue according to purposes I couldn't influence or escape. Hours passed unmeasured in spaces where time flowed differently. No one explained my situation or outlined future expectations. I was a resource being stored until needed, valuable enough to maintain but not important enough to merit communication.
Through walls existing in adjacent dimensions, sounds filtered like audio ghosts. Conversations in languages carrying meanings beyond communication. Mechanical noises from technology operating by unknown principles. And underneath everything, that persistent thrumming pulsing with something vast and patient in the mountain's crystalline heart.
On the third day, change finally arrived. Instead of the usual routine, the spokeswoman entered alone, her features arranged in careful anticipation and controlled concern.
The master requests your presence.
She announced, voice carrying weight beyond invitation.
You will join him for the morning meal in the great hall.
The words fell like stones into still water, ripples of implication spreading through consciousness numbed by isolation. Whatever evaluation had been conducted, judgment had been rendered according to unknowable criteria. I was being summoned before the Worldbreaker himself.
The corridors stretched deeper into the mountain heart than architecture should allow, carved from living stone pulsing with bioluminescent communication networks. Through crystalline windows, alien constellations wheeled in configurations unknown to earthly astronomy. The great hall opened like a cathedral carved from impossibility, its vaulted ceiling lost in shadows that moved with purpose when observed directly. The table stretched longer than settlement meeting halls, its surface reflecting infinite space within finite matter. At its head sat the Worldbreaker.
7 feet of controlled violence, scarred features bearing expressions perfected over centuries of cosmic problem-solving. Amber eyes tracked my approach with predatory intelligence, cataloging every detail, every response, every emotion across my divinely enhanced features. His presence filled spaces larger than physical dimensions, divine authority making reality bend around his attention. When he gestured toward a chair at the table's opposite end, the movement carried weight beyond invitation.
Sit,
He commanded, voice making crystalline fixtures ring in response.
The distance felt both protective and isolating, far enough to prevent immediate threat, close enough for detailed observation. The servants had arranged this encounter with precision born of long practice managing interactions between divine authority and mortal subjects. I took the seat, silk rustling against furniture that adjusted automatically to my enhanced form. The table held foods carrying scents from distant worlds, fruits that chimed when touched, bread from grains grown under alien stars, dishes defying identification but promising nourishment beyond earthly comprehension. For long moments, neither spoke. He studied me with microscopic attention, divine senses cataloging genetic potential and botanical knowledge for unknowable purposes. I met his amber gaze with whatever dignity remained to someone dressed for cosmic auction.
Finally, he broke the silence.
you may wander the grounds as you please.
He said, voice carrying undertones of barely contained avalanches.
But you may not leave the mountain.
The words fell between us like stones in still water, ripples spreading through consciousness strained by isolation and uncertainty. Not death sentence or immediate punishment, but parameters for existence extending beyond simple captivity into cosmic significance. I opened my mouth to respond with building anger, but he stood before words could form. His massive frame moved with predatory grace. Divine authority considering communication complete once basic facts were transmitted. He left me alone in the great hall, surrounded by alien foods and cosmic attention pressing against consciousness like a gathering storm. The mountain breathed around me with intelligence larger than geology, promising revelations about power-spanning worlds and purposes transcending mortal understanding. I could wander the grounds as I pleased, but I could never leave. The parameters of my new existence had been established beyond my influence or comprehension. Somewhere in the sanctuary's impossible halls, research continued that had drawn cosmic attention to desperate mortals who dared steal fire from gods. The children lived because of golden fruit harvested from gardens existing between worlds. Now, all that remained was discovering whether the price for that miracle would prove bearable, or if some debts could only be paid through transformation, leaving nothing recognizable of the woman who'd incurred them.